Welcome back to another episode of The Sweet Spot. This is John Sherman from the Four Foundations of Golf. And as always, I'm joined by.
Adam from Adam Young Golf.
So, this past week, I had what I would say is an interesting experience at a tournament. And I kind of turned what happened into this mini essay, and a lot of people responded positively to it. So, whenever that occurs, I know I have a good piece of content or thought. So, I thought it was worth giving it more color and talking a little deeper about it here today.
Where did you write that?
On my newsletter. I put it on Twitter as well. Probably turned into a YouTube video. I'll just blast it everywhere. Yeah, the main kind of thesis or concept is developing scar tissue as a golfer. I'll go into kind of what happened at the tournament and this conversation I had with another player on the car ride home. It was kind of an interesting coincidence, and I'll get into why. Kind of knocked something loose in my brain and gave me a little bit of an epiphany, and just the realization, certainly not the first time I've realized this, but the longer you play this game, the more it means to you, especially if you play competitively. You're going to develop scar tissue, right? You're going to miss 2-foot putts when it matters the most. You're going to skull a chip. You're going to hit a drive out of bounds when you're on the verge of shooting your personal best. And unfortunately, like, these experiences live in our brains. We develop scar tissue, and we really have two options. We can let these things define us and kind of establish a negative narrative about our game at times or even forever. Or you can kind of choose the second option, which is understanding that it is normal and it's part of playing this game. And that, if you care about golf, I think if you listen to this show, you care about golf a lot. You care about getting better at this game. And if you put your game on the line enough, especially competitively, it's going to happen to you. You're going to have these moments and you can learn from them and you can move on from them and kind of coexist with them. And, that's what kind of happened this week with my own game and talking with this other golfer. And it just kind of reminded me of this, like, really, I think, important theme of golf.
So what happened then? Well, take
Okay.
me.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, so, overall context is, as many of you know, I compete in tournaments because I like it. I like the rush. Sometimes I hate the scars that it gives me, but this, I think we did kind of at the end of last year, we did a state of our games, and I was a little bit frustrated. And to be honest, like, the start of this year, my game's not felt as sharp as it could be. I had one good early tournament. The first tournament of the year was an invitational match play event that I played pretty well at, but I just felt very shaky and wasn't striking it as well, playing some new equipment. And I've just had a lot of rounds where, you have rounds where you just feel like you don't get anything out of them and you shot the highest score you could have shot type days. And it's just like, you're like, what? And I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. I would be playing well and then not close it out, which I usually pride myself on. So a lot of these one day qualifiers I play in, I was missing the cut or making the event by like 1, 2, 3 strokes. And I just say to myself, I'm like, you didn't even play that bad, but somehow I just made a sloppy bogey. I was just hitting really bizarre shots. Like, I'm thin and iron. I shanked a couple this spring. And it was one of those things where I couldn't, we always talk about patterns and I just couldn't find anything. I'm like, I don't know what the problem is. I'm just, out of nowhere hitting these bizarre shots. And it had been frustrating me. And what's funny is that the wedge stuff has kind of gotten better. I've, you know, don't have the heebie-jeebies as much. I'm chipping with two hands. I'm relaxing myself, so that's been
You
better.
are. When did you go back to
Yeah,
that?
I just, what it was. We had that episode with Liam Mucklow on grip pressure, and I think a lot of it was just reminding myself. And I'm gonna share an experience where this happened under pressure this week, where I just had to really relax myself. I think that was one of the main issues, just getting so tense and anxious before the shot, and the forearms and the hands and the chest, and just nothing fluid was happening. So that actually has been better. It Again, the frustration was like other parts of my game didn't feel as good. So I don't know, it was a crisis of confidence, but the past few weeks I've really been hitting it better. My irons have been coming around. And so this past week, I played the Long Island Amateur, which is like one of our great events. You got to do stroke play qualifying, which is like a noose around your neck every time you do it. You tee off knowing you're going to need to shoot even, one over, two over, something like that. There's 31 spots for match play. The defending champion gets a bye. Um, so it's kind of funny what happened. So I played the round. I never played this course. It was quite quirky. I think I shot 3 over on the front. It was very windy. Just I wasn't feeling sharp, and it was like kind of another one of those days. Like, ugh, this is happening again. And I just kind of found something on the back nine. I grinded. I made a few putts, and I get to my last hole, and I'm 3 over par, and we have live scoring. So I check my phone sometimes because, there are certain situations, I think, when you get to the end on certain strategic decisions you have to make where I like to know what I need to do. So I pretty much knew that if I parred this final hole, I would probably get into match play. And if I made bogey, I'd be in a playoff, which you don't want to be in a playoff. And I'll set up the strategic decision, maybe walk through how I thought about it. Long par three, uphill, 220. I saw the hole when I was walking over. False front on the front, false front on the right with traps, like junk over there. You don't want to be long right. There was another, like, just very well guarded green with a lot of false fronts. And the only really good miss was pin high left. And the wind was ripping. So, your head's spinning in these moments. I'm trying to make the right decision. How much club do I take? How's the wind going to affect it? I had a course caddy and he was trying to help me, but you can't take forever. So I'm like, all right, pins on the back right. I'm aiming on the left side of the screen. I'm going to hit a 4-iron. I think that's enough club. And I hit it and I just smoked this thing. And I look at it. I'm like, oh, great shot, like right off the hands. And then the wind takes it and it hits the right side of the green and goes long. And I'm like, I knew what I left myself. I left myself the wedge shot I didn't want. So I go up to the ball. It's in the rough. There's a false front. The green is running away from me. So essentially, I have to hit a shot that either I run it into the false front. I have to either bump it into that and then it pops up on the green and hopefully doesn't carry enough speed where it goes off the front of the green because it's running away from me. Or I try and fly it over it and somehow hit a delicate shot. And I have like this medium lie in the rough. And, I'm thinking like, I can't make double here because that takes me out of it. So I can't do anything like I'm not going to try and flop shot it. So I'm like, all right, I'll take a lower lofted club and just try and bump it. And I don't hit a good shot. So the scar tissue of my wedge game came back and I kind of blacked out at impact. And to be honest, I was actually lucky that the ball stayed on the green. And yeah, it's just one of those things like, when pressure squeezes if you want to find out where your game stands, like play a stroke play tournament. I always say that to people on Twitter. Like if you really want to know what needs the most work, like go play a stroke play tournament because your weaknesses get exposed eventually. And so I leave myself like a 35-foot difficult putt, poor lag putt, 5 feet, ball's breaking outside of the hole. And I know if I miss it, I'm just totally done. And I just somehow squeaked it in on the left side. So I make a bogey, but part of me was a little disappointed because, as I said, I had been hitting better wedge shots, but that one I kind of a little bit at impact, bladed it a bit. It might have even been a half shank. I can't even remember the impact. Like my mind blanked out. So that wasn't pleasant. That was not fun. But I was proud of myself for hanging in there. And then so I get into playoff. And for match play playoffs, it could be any scenario. So it ended up being 11 for 4 spots, which is kind of a wild scenario. I've been in this before. So we go off in a group of 6 and a group of 5, and everyone needs to play. And after each hole, the lowest scores go through. So if, let's say, 4 guys made a birdie, then those 4 are in and the rest of them are out. And then if 2 guys made a birdie, then everyone, those 2 guys are in, and then the rest who made, pars or keep going and the bogeys are gone. So that's how
And
it
each
works.
each hole is like reset. So if you make a
Yeah.
birdie, you don't go on to the next one as one under.
You're just in. Yeah. So they keep trying to separate the golfers. So again, like if there were, let's say, the first hole, 2 guys make birdie, 5 guys make par, and the other 4 make bogeys, birdie guys are in, they're done. bogey guys are out, and then the rest of the par guys have to play the next hole. So it's kind of a pressure packed situation. Like you just keep going until you get those four golfers. So it's kind of wild. There's tons of people watching. My dad actually came because he lived not far away. So, it's pressure, it's fun. Short par four, like 370. I go off in the second group. I don't know what the first six guys did. I have no idea what score they shot. So they're done standing on the green watching us. Uh, Tons of people around. This is kind of like a spectacle of a playoff. And I just bombed my drive. I killed it. I wanted to leave myself more of a full wedge, and I was the farthest drive. It just got an incredible kick. I hit it like 320. So I'm left with a 40-yard wedge shot off a tight lie. And that's the shot that's been giving me the heebie jeebies. Like, give me a tight fairway shot, and the scar tissue is there, as I said. And my friend who didn't make the cut, who's a great tournament player, was kind of caddying for me on that hole. And I think I texted you this, like, as the other players were hitting, all I could think was, do not skull this thing over the green in front of all of these people. Like, that would just be a disaster. Like, I couldn't help but my mind wandering to this situation. And it got to my turn. I was the last to go. A lot of balls on the green. One guy hit it to 5 feet. Most had birdie putts. And I just said to myself, like, you got to take this shot on. You got to relax yourself. And that was my last thought. And I just nipped this thing perfectly. One hop, stop, like 3 feet below the hole, like perfect, like one of the best shots I hit in my life. And, make the birdie putt and go through. And it was a good feeling to execute that under pressure, because I had everything in my brain telling me that, you could skull this over the green and make a fool out of yourself.
So what did you do anything psychologically
No,
over the shot? Did you just say like try and relax over this, or you
yeah.
just
Honestly, like, I've been in this situation before, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, and I'll get on to this other player who moved on to the second hole in the conversation we had in the car, because I thought what he had to say was very interesting. He's one of the best tournament players I've ever known. But I think it's quite normal for a golfer to have these thoughts, right? We don't get to choose like what comes into our brain when you're trying to break 90 or 80 or 100 or whatever, all the messages we receive from players who have these moments they're trying to break through, and they're like, man, I blew it. I screwed up. And you do it, you don't do it. And there will be plenty of times where you don't do it and you do the thing you don't want to do, like I did in regulation. I hit the wedge shot I didn't want to hit. I totally, like, just, the pressure got to me and I blacked out, and I was lucky I even made the bogey. And then literally an hour and a half later, get faced with a similar shot that gave me a lot of anxiety. And I just had to say, like, I'll do my best to relax my body and know what gives me the best chance. And I'm just going to take the shot on and I'll see what happens. And I did it that time. So you don't get to choose, right? Like, it happens sometimes and it doesn't happen sometimes. And you kind of have to live with both. It's really hard to do that. And the best thing that I've found is just kind of being at peace with that. Because in another reality, yeah, I bleed that one over the green. I make a bogey and I just kind of walk away and be like, oh, that sucked. Like, that was embarrassing. And now my season is still kind of frustrating me. And these are the moments that happen in your golf game.
yeah, it's interesting how the thoughts relate. I mean, or not. I think with my driver, for example, I'm a very good driver of the ball. I rarely stand over a drive confident. My brain is so weird. Like I look at my stats and I hit between 70 and 80% fairways. I like gain strokes according to Tangent. I gain strokes on pros accuracy wise. Yet most of my drives I stand over thinking, I have no idea where this is going to go. Probably because
Really?
of what we talk. Yeah,
I
yeah. I don't know
I
why it
find
is.
that, see, that is interesting to me, because my driver's my best club and I stand up there like very confident. It's
Yeah,
interesting, like, how, and I guess the point is like, you don't need, I think in a perfect world you'd want to stand up being confident, right? But you're showing people that you can stand over the ball and have conflicting thoughts and hit good shots, like I did with that wedge.
yeah. Well, I told you about the other day. I went out and hit every single fairway, and apart from one, I hit one shot out of bounds. And all the fairways that I hit, I stood over thinking, God, this is tight. I'm not sure if I got the wind here, and I don't know where this is going to go exactly. And yeah, I hit all the fairways with those negative thoughts in my head. The one shot that I hit out of bounds was on a fairway that I swear was 120 yards wide. It's like doing it at St. Andrews. And I stood up there with no fear at all. I'm just like, right, this is easy. I'm just going to smack it down there. And I hit that one out of bounds. And it's just so the confidence completely didn't correlate with the performance there.
Yeah, maybe you need like a healthy dose of fear in you. That's
Well,
your
this is
motivator.
probably it, right? I mean, even when I was studying sports psychology in university, there was the arousal bell curve. There's a more official name for it, but basically, if you have no arousal at all, you're not fearful in any regard. Like I wasn't on that 120 yard. There's probably not enough stimulation there to perform really well. It's kind of like if you're bored, if there's nothing on the line, you're not really paying attention too much, maybe performance will drop down. Then you have an optimal level of arousal where you're neither amped up too much nor there's enough stimulation there to get you concentrated. And then it starts to decline as you get more and more amped up, maybe tournament pressure, then performance can start to decline. And then there's the catastrophe theory as well, where it ramps up to a certain point, and then all of a sudden you hit a certain level of arousal, and then it just falls off a cliff. I think I'm kind of that type of person. Like I need to have a decent amount of arousal to perform well. Arousal meaning like
Yeah, we're gonna
stimulation
get
of.
so many emails about
Yeah, I
you
know.
saying the word
It's an
arousal.
official psychological term, the arousal part. And yeah, then there'll be a tipping point where I'm just like, I can't deal with this because I'm just not inclined mentally.
Yeah, I think experience is a big deal in my opinion. So for pressure situations, like in that scenario I was in, I actually wasn't nervous because I'd been in playoffs like that before. I played so many tournaments. It was fun, it was exciting. But yeah, at the same time, I did have that fear of that shot, but I didn't step up to it trembling. I was just like, I'm just gonna hit this shot. Like, you just gotta do it, dude. Like, just step up and hit it. And it worked out that time. But the second part of this that was actually I found to be more interesting and the bigger takeaway for me was so the playoff continued, and as luck would have it, I had to drive this other player home. So the course I used to belong to when I first moved out to where I live, I haven't been there in 5 or 6 years, but as luck would have it, I was paired with one of my friends from that course in the tournament. So I played with him in regulation, and another player from that club who is the top 3 tournament players I've ever played with. I learned a ton with him. He was also there and he was in the playoff. And because the other guy didn't make it, they were carpooling. So I had to drive him home. So I stuck around because I wanted to see the rest of the playoff and I had to drive this guy home anyway. And I watched the second hole. And this guy's, I think he's 68 or 69, competing. There's college kids in this playoff. He's still at it. He's won twice this year in senior events. Like this guy is an ox. He's just unbelievable. And I've learned so much from him when I played with him. And he, on the second playoff hole, on a difficult par four, stiffed his 7 iron to 3 feet, made the birdie while everyone else was struggling to make pars, college kids and people 30, 40, even 50 years younger than him. And he claimed the other spot. And it was just kind of a cool moment where I was like, well, this is going to be a nice car ride home because we both made birdies to get into the match play. So, we got in the car and we had a nice, talk in there. But, I'm always trying to absorb wisdom from players who have been through a lot of pressure and performed well. And we were just kind of talking about tournament experience and that. And I think this applies to all golfers, even if you don't play tournaments. But it was interesting about him for all the wins he's had and the incredible record he had. He was talking about all of the times it didn't happen. He said, he had that 3-footer to make it. He's like, man, I've missed that 3-footer so many times. He's like, I remember in the 92, Long Island Amateur in the final, I missed that putt. And he just kind of kept going over and over the heartbreaks and the scars that had developed in decades. I mean, he's been playing competitively for probably 50 years now. He was a great college player. He's just been playing forever. And what I kind of admired about him was that he kind of absorbed the scars as much as, or they were a part of him equally as his wins and his triumphs, meaning like he was very comfortable with them. They didn't occupy his mind in a way that he was like, oh, I hate this part about myself. It was just part of his playing record. Like he's, older than me and has more wisdom, but it just kind of struck me that he had kind of come to terms with there was no way that he would get what he wanted, which is to win and play well without absorbing these, unfortunate moments where you skull the chip, you miss the putt, you hit the drive out of bounds, and you just have to learn that this is part of golf, and it's quite normal again to develop these scars over time and absorb them into your game. And you shouldn't, part of me this year, I think I maybe got a little negative on myself and like wondering like, oh, is my game disappearing or something like that. And, that was a nice moment. And my recent play was a nice reminder that, it's still there and I'm trending upwards again. But, these scars are there. Like they don't go away, they don't fade forever. They're kind of part of you. And you just have to like learn to live with them, I think. And talking with him was actually a nice experience. I wish we could have recorded the conversation because it was, I just think, a tremendous amount of wisdom. But just like he kind of felt them both equally the way he described them. Like when he talked about the missed putt or a win, they were both kind of like the shared experiences in his like journey through golf. And he was just like, yeah, that happened and it sucked. But yeah, it's just part of the deal, man. That's golf.
So what
And the
what
way he said it was so
benefits
matter of fact. Yeah.
what benefits do you feel you can get from having that negative side in your thoughts? I'm all
Well,
for balance, so
I just think that what do we all want, right? We all want lower scores. We all want to hit great shots under pressure. We all want to make 6 footers to win a match against our friends where like the Nassau was on the line. Like we all want that, right? You all want like that moment I had, like I will remember that forever hitting that shot in the playoff. Like that will be with me forever. And it was fun. Having my dad there was really special. But yeah, I've talked about moments like I missed like a 14-inch putt in a club championship playoff like 4 or 5 years ago that in front of like 50 people that was so embarrassing. I put that in my book. I think it was just so embarrassing and like took me a long time to get over it, but I'm actually glad it happened because I think when that stuff happens, you develop a new you and I talk about reference points in your golf swing. Like you have a reference point for how open your face is or how closed it is. I think if you use these moments as reference points in your emotional experience, saying like, well, nothing worse can happen to me than that. I've already been through that. Like I could blade that wedge over the green and it will just be another scar. And you can't do anything worse to me. It's already happened. And you just kind of say, like, that's part of the deal. I can't get what I want from this game without going through that. It is part of it. And the players who fight against that and view that as like shameful and I'm guilty as charged, where you kind of let it more define you and make you feel less of your golf game or even yourself as a person, like then I think you're going a little too overboard and you're taking it a little too personally for something that is bound to happen. It's like I'm going to make more blunders. It's a guarantee. It's never going to stop. So I think that was one of the things that like it was a nice reminder that again, I could skull the chip and I could hit the great shot within literally hours of each other, two diametrically opposed shots, same player. And I have to accept, obviously, I want the latter to happen more often, but I also have to accept that, yeah, the guy who kind of blew it on the final hole, too.
I guess if you learn from the negative, if you hit those negative outcomes and you use it as emotional fuel in the wrong
Yeah,
way, that's
it's,
not gonna help. But if you hit that shot and you're like, okay, like if I miss that putt, okay, I didn't commit to that. Right, next time I've got to remember commit to that. Okay, this
yeah.
is keeps coming up.
And also just know that you can do all the right things and not get what you want, too. So I think there's the experience part of it. We constantly get the question, how do I break through X barrier? And my response is usually, well, you got to be open to blowing it. I know you don't like that answer, but you have to be, if you want to break 80 or break 90 or break 100 and break through that scoring and psychological barrier, you need to put yourself in that position enough where you're going to learn something and go through those emotions. And yes, you are going to blow it. You are going to make a triple on the 18th hole when you needed a par to break 80. Like it's going to happen. I guarantee it. And even if you do break 80, it'll happen again. That doesn't mean you solved it forever. So it's, yes, it's this acceptance that you need to do it to gain experience. And hopefully that unlocks something that you can learn from and you'll do it more often. But that doesn't mean you've solved it forever as well. So, like this guy said, he's got enough scars that could fill up a book for all of the wins he has and the tremendous record he has. He's got enough missed short putts and embarrassing moments that would blow you away, but you would never look at him and think that. Everyone looks at him and be like, "Wow, look at his record. He's such a great player." And he's like, "Yeah, I am, but here's my catalog of times where I blew it too, and that's part of my game as well." So I
There's
thought
a
that
lot.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of people can relate to this with breaking certain barriers, like breaking 80 for the first time, 90 or
Yeah.
70. Everybody goes through the same experience. You get close. You're like coming into the last 3, 4 holes, and you're like, "Wow, I'm 3 shots under my best. I'm gonna break. I'm gonna break 80 finally." You just usually people get too conservative. I would say. I mean, maybe not, but that used to be the mistake for
Yeah,
me. I used
yeah,
to
you try
breaking
and
par was a nightmare for me. I used to be 3, 4 under, and just used to blow it on the last 3, 4 holes, which were easy as well at my home course. And it was just getting too conservative, playing scared.
and again, that so the thing that frustrated me the most this year is that I got pretty good at closing out rounds for years. So when I would sniff like all these stroke play qualifiers I play in, I've had a pretty good record of doing it when I've had the chance and like bringing it into the clubhouse. But this year I had 3 of them where I should have been in no problem. And I kind of, I don't know if choking's the right word, but I just didn't, I made a couple late bogeys and I was like, man, that sucked. So getting back to my original point is like you break through, you regress, you come back to it again, you'll have another breakthrough. And this is relevant to breaking 100, beating your best friend in match play. I'm talking about a very stressful tournament situation, but this can be applied to anyone listening in any personal situation you face in this game when something is important to you, a result is important to you, and you don't get it. You have 2 options. You can understand it's part of the game, or you can feel shame and have it fuel you in the opposite direction. And I haven't been great at always choosing the right path. I'm not perfect, so there have been times where I'm like, "Man, you suck. Like you're blowing it. Like you're a loser now." Whatever you say to yourself in those moments, and then you just kind of have to snap yourself out of it. But that like I think it goes hand in hand with the more you care about the game. Like the more
Mhm.
important golf is to you, and more important the results are to you, the harder this like dichotomy is. And yeah, I think like this guy at almost 70 years old embracing all of it and looking back on his entirety of his golf resume was special for me just because when you want it so badly, the opposite end of the spectrum is very hard to deal with. And then there are some players who just decide I don't want to take it that seriously. I don't want to feel like this and I don't care as much about my score and that's fine too. Like you don't have to be I'm a little crazy to play all these tournaments and everyone who plays them is a little crazy too. Like we're kind of like gluttons for punishment to want to go through these things. And then there's varying levels of how far you want to take that in your own game. So it's kind of a choose your own adventure and I guess this story is for the player who cares more about their game and their score and results.
Do you think sometimes we place a lot of emphasis on the negative end of the spectrum? Because I think for me, when I do it, it's almost a way of building myself up. It's like, oh, I putted so awful today. Because you think, well, oh my God, I got potential there. I shot
Yeah.
3 under putting horribly today. That's potential for 4, 5, 6, 7 under. It's almost motivating in a way, even though it doesn't come out externally like that. You're focusing on the negative, talking about the negative, but really, in some ways, it's almost a positive in your own mind. Sometimes.
Yeah, there's I think there's 2 paths you can choose with these things. Like we all have like these dark little things in our game, whether it's your driver, your irons, wedge shots, putting, where you just like look at this part of your game and you're like, "Ugh, this isn't great." And yeah, you can use the negativity to fuel you to work harder, or you can wear it around. I've conversed with a lot of golfers on Twitter who like wear certain things in their game like an anvil around their neck. And I'm guilty of this with my wedge play. I'm totally guilty as charged where you're like, yeah, this is my cross to bear. I can't get past this. It's been killing me. And I don't think that's the way out of it. I'm still trying to figure that part out. But yeah, some people it fuels them to get better and they work harder and you don't get the result you want sometimes and you do. I don't know, it's hard. Some things get out of whack sometimes in golf, and, like, I firmly believe, like, most things pass over time for most people. Time is, like, a great healer of a lot of things because it doesn't seem as big of a deal. Like, when my wedge thing first started happening, it was utter panic. I'm like, "Oh my god, I can't play tournaments with, like, the chipping yips. I'm done." And now, like 18 months later, I'm like, yeah, like it's not as big of a deal. Like it's obviously still festering in there, but it's not like defining me as much because a lot of time has passed. It's not a shock anymore. Like the shock has passed. And now I have
Yeah.
some evidence that I can hit these shots under pressure because I've given myself enough repetition where I've hit a few good ones where I'm like, you know what? This isn't that big of a deal. You obviously can pull these shots off. It's just a matter of like getting yourself in a state to do it and obviously working on the technique. That's like the bedrock of that. It's hard. Yeah. I know like you struggle. Like I have my very close friend who's a great tournament player. He's struggling very badly with his putting now, kind of like you've discussed with like short putts. And, I actually turned him on to some of Carl Morris's stuff, like The Lost Art of Putting, that book, and just being more of an artist and getting away from the result thinking, and it's kind of been helpful to him. That yeah, these are really hard problems to solve when we have these like major scars in our game.
Yeah. My putting's been okay recently. I actually had a couple of good rounds the other day, but it's hovering around maybe the scratch mark, maybe losing a little bit to a scratch. So it's not awful. It's not like yippee awful, but it's those days where you hit it close and you're like, oh, if I even just putted normally here, this would have been a 5, 6, 7 under. But I think sometimes that's why I don't even practice putting because if I don't practice it, I can use it as an excuse, right? So putting sucks, but I never practice it. So what am I expecting? And I guess there's almost a fear there unconsciously. I've never explored it too much that, well, I don't want to practice putting because what if I practice putting and I don't get better at it? I pulled all
Yeah,
the levers that I can. I know we talk about this
that's
with YouTube as well, even from a business perspective, right? Is that you're constantly on me, get on YouTube, get on YouTube. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of like a little scared because what if I do the YouTube and it doesn't have the effect that I want it to on my business or my following and things like that. So I kind of leave it as a lever to pull if I need
I
to.
think that's a I mean, that's a big life thing where you have a fear of something and you're like, well, and that's what sucks about the wedges for me because I spent so much time working at it. I walked through that door and I didn't get better. I was like, "What the hell? Like that wasn't fair." So yeah, you put the work in and you don't get what you want initially, and that's really annoying. I wish I had a great answer. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure some of this stuff out myself, but I think the thing I keep coming back to is that golf is a really unique game and it's a unique activity that it can occupy a place, like, in our heart that's so special like nothing else. I'm not trying to sometimes I feel like I always bring up running because it's a more straightforward activity, and I used to run a lot, and I get why people love running, but let's say you, like, loved running, and you're in running groups, and you're in communities of running groups. You're not gonna get the running yips. Like, you're not gonna go out there in an important race and, like, just forget how to run and fall over, right? Like, does that happen to runners? Like, I've never seen
I
that
think so.
happen. Like, you could cramp up. You just, maybe your lungs aren't as fresh that day, whatever it is, but you're not going to fall over and do the equivalent of what we do in golf, which would be like topping a drive or chunking a chip or missing a 2-footer. And in this game, it really is different in that way that we get so obsessed with it and so deeply intertwined with like looking forward to that round on Saturday morning we've been dreaming about all week and our expectations and what we're going to play like. And then all these like crazy things can happen that make us feel really bad about ourselves and down on ourselves. And I think that's one of the difficult things to like bear as a golfer is we do play this game that has the capacity for a lot of pain and torture. Like, let's face it, like at your level, like you play at an incredibly high level. I know everyone listening to this is being like, man, I wish I could shoot 3 under on a bad day. And Adam's talking about wanting to get to 7 under. But in your life and the thousands of hours you put into your game, like, yeah, it sucks to hit a wedge or an iron to 8 feet and keep missing that putt. Like, that can drive you absolutely insane. I call that the curse of the good ball striker, where you hit it so well and you give yourself all these looks at putts and you can't make them all. Again, someone would kill to shoot that score, but for you, you're like, well, what could have been there? And then you look at the putter and you're like, what is this thing? What are you doing to me?
We'll have to get Lou Stagner on again to talk about, because I think there is something, right, when you hit it closer, you get more, especially very close, like there's 8 to 10 foot putts. Each one
Yeah,
of
you're not
those
going
that
to
you
make most.
miss is
Yeah,
gonna
you're going to
have a
miss
higher effect.
70% of those. Yeah,
Yeah.
from 10 feet, you're going to miss 70% of those probably. Yeah, it is interesting. Like when I look back on these moments, and I just want to share these experiences because even in the match play in this event, in the first round, I actually beat one of the best players in our section. It was a major upset. It was very exciting for me. No one thought I was going to beat him. I came into the clubhouse afterwards and everyone's like, nice job, man. I'm like, yeah. And then I went out in the afternoon for the next match. I was 4 down after 5 holes. Just like got out there and like it was actually the guy's home course. So he had a little bit of advantage, but just shellacked me. I made a birdie putt. He made a birdie putt on top of me. I'm like, wow. And I got him. I fought hard in the end. I got him. I had a putt to get one down with like 4 to go. And I missed it. That was my chance. So he won the match. But yeah, within like an hour, I went from riding this incredible high to like, taking down one of the favorites in the event to like, oh, you're done here. You're not winning. So yeah, it's just like this endless roller coaster that you go through. And I think we need to take a step back at times and understand that the variance and distribution of your shots and results, like they feel personal. They feel like they're sometimes like a narrative on yourself as a person. Like there are times where you play golf and the scores you shoot and you're like, makes you feel bad about yourself. And that sucks too, right? Like you don't want to do that to yourself, but it can happen, right?
I've obviously got massively better. I think we do with age. Most people get better when you start, get things like family, house, job, car. Golf becomes less important. I remember when I was kind of 16, 17, 18, and golf was everything to me. And yeah, you'd be borderline depressed with, I probably shouldn't use that phrase because I know it's a medical thing, but, you'd be very, very sad with your results. And now I still get it, especially in the moment, like even just around just playing with the buddies. If you shoot like a high score, yeah, it feels horrible. You go off, you get in the car and you're upset with yourself. You're like, "Ugh," but then you calm yourself down. And then after a day or so, it's like, oh, what was I even worrying about? No one's going to remember that. I'm not going to remember that. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
I think the one of the underlying issues is like the identity. So we as golfers, it's part of our identity. Like this is a club we're part of. It's, because it can, as I said, occupy that special place in our heart, like some other activities can't. And our identity gets wrapped up in it. And yeah, that with that becomes you ride the highs and you say, oh man, I did that amazing thing. I finally broke through and I shot an 88. And now I'm the golfer who broke 90. I did it. That's my identity now, right? And then you go out the next day and shoot 120 and you're like, I suck. I hate myself. I hate this game. I'm selling all my clubs. And that like roller coaster of scoring distribution and what it could do to your identity is crazy. And I know everyone listening to this understands what this feels like if you've been like truly bitten by the bug in this game. It's all like normal, like right? We're all kind of a little crazy that we hit this like little white ball around a field into a small hole and it can literally like define our whole lives at times. It's wild. But
Well,
that's what is awesome about it too.
tournament play, I would imagine. I haven't done much tournament play. I just went straight into. I did some when I was an amateur, long time ago, so I can't really remember it. But once I turned pro, I just went straight into teaching, and I didn't want to do all the playing. And tournament play just exaggerates both ends of the spectrum, right? On the good days, it's going to feel
Yeah,
so much
it
better when you do it, which is what people play for. But then the bad days feel so much worse when you do it in a tournament because it's kind of locked in, it's on the record, it's stamped, it's carved. It's, yeah, I
and the thing,
don't
yeah,
like that stuff
a lot of
personally.
people don't I don't like it either when it happens, but the bottom line is that, for people who are interested in it and do it, it is part of the deal. The best I can do is enjoy the moments where great things happen, and then, yeah, when it doesn't happen and you blow a few, you just kinda have to, like, put it in its place rationally, just saying, like, let's say for qualifiers. So a lot of you listening to this will probably, if you belong to a club, you might try to qualify for your club championship. And that could be, a lot of the formats are you have 1 or 2 rounds of stroke play to get into match play. That's a very popular format. So you have this situation where you have to shoot a certain score in 1 round or 2 rounds. Very similar to teaching pros when they have to take their playing ability test. I've spoken to a lot of pros, and
I
that
remember
round
that.
is just terrifying to them.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, that was your whole. You're not going out there to try and shoot a score with the playing ability test. So for those listening who've never done it, it's a pretty easy thing on paper, right? You got to shoot
Yes, yeah.
15 over, I think the standard scratch, 15 over the standard scratch over 2 rounds. So a 7 over and an 8 over will do it. On paper, easy, especially for someone who shoots level par. So, but you're going out there, you're not trying to shoot a score. You're not trying to shoot a good score. You're trying to not shoot a bad
Yes,
score. It's a
yes.
completely different mentality. And I've seen, I mean, even for myself, it was just horrible mentally going through it. You just, the whole thing, you're playing defensive and it just sucks. I mean, it'd be easier knowing the stuff I know about stats now. We didn't have strokes gained and things like that back then. But yeah, the whole thing was just very defensive playing.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably played in over 100 of these things at this point where I had to, like, go out and shoot a score one day, and it is a grueling way to play golf. Like, it's tough. I don't sometimes I wonder why I keep doing it, but the best I can come up with, whether you're, in that scenario where it's like a club championship or maybe you're playing a city qualifier. I know there's a lot of these different formats, but you just have to understand that, let's say your average score was an 82 or whatever it is, and you need to shoot, let's say, a 79 or an 80. And a lot of players go into these events, when you have to be honest with yourself. So if shooting on the lower end of your spectrum is what it's going to take to do it, I don't want you to go in there with a defeatist attitude, but at the same time, you have to be realistic that it's going to take my A game to do this, and just be at peace with, if you are a low 80s shooter, that sometimes means you shoot a 94. Sometimes that means you shoot a 77. You're not sure what version of your game will show up that day, but it is in the realm of possibility. And yeah, the better players who, in our section, when you have to shoot 1 or 2 over, there are players where that's not a great day for them and they qualify a lot. And there are players where they have to shoot their absolute best to do it. And obviously, the player who doesn't need to play their best is going to do it more often because they're just better at this game and they likely have more experience in it. So you have to be realistic with your scoring spectrum and your experience, because if you're doing it for the first time, you're going to feel emotions that are very foreign to you, like standing over a 3 foot putt. Like, I had that 5 foot putt on my 18th hole, where I knew I needed to make it to get into a playoff. I've had that putt before. It wasn't the first time where I had to make a 5 footer. Sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't, but it will just be another missed 5 footer of the many I missed. It'll go into this, like, bucket of missed 5 footers where I'm like, well, there's another one. But when it's the first one, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm such a loser. I had that putt. And it just takes on more significance because it hasn't happened that often. So experience is, like, I cannot, like, oversell how important experience is. And that goes hand in hand with the scars. Like, you need to develop more of the scars and you need to develop more of the triumphs so that neither of them hopefully feel as big of a deal to you. And obviously the triumphs you want to internalize a bit more because they're fun. But yeah, that's the hardest part about competing, is if you don't have reference points and experience, the initial forays into it feel pretty horrible. And same goes for, and this all applies to breaking 80, 90, 100, whatever It's the same philosophy, I think, for scoring milestones. Same type of things that are happening in your brain with experience and blowing it and the shame you feel, all very normal and, nothing to be like down about for that long because it's part of the game. You cannot escape this stuff. You just can't.
Even for the pros, break the first time winning a tournament, the first time winning a major, the first time breaking 60, shooting
Yeah.
shooting a 59, the same things go through pros' heads. Be
Yeah. Oh
interesting to
yeah.
see getting the data from some people we know, perhaps, on what percentage of time players shoot their best scores. So say within 3 shots of their best ever round, what percentage of time they play that versus 3 shots of their worst score.
I mean, it's probably the distribution of a you get your 68% distribution is most of it, and then when you get to the outer limits of 95, what's a 95 and 98%? Like, yeah, you're going down to a few percentage points. That's why when you go out there, I used to go out chasing my personal best. Like when I played golf, I was like, I'm not going to be happy if for me, for a long time, like breaking 80 was the thing that made my brain feel really good about myself. But I wasn't good enough and I didn't play enough to break 80 that often. So I was going out with the intention of the day being a success only if I shot in the 70s when that would only happen like, I don't know, 5% of the time. And then the 95% of the time I'd be like, that sucked. That was not fun. And that's a horrible way to play this game, I think.
Yeah, probably one of the best things I ever did for my own happiness in golf is to expand my expectations of where I should shoot. I mean, in reality, you shouldn't have any, but to go from right, I need to shoot level par at least to now I think, well, I could be 5 under today. I could be 5, 6, 7 over, depending on what the wind is doing. Vegas is crazy for wind. So, a 12 shot range for me is where my medium lies. Once I go outside of that, like say I shoot an 8 over, that's when I start to get a little grumpy in the car. It takes me maybe a day
Well,
to get over it.
and that's the idea of creating a separate scorecard, right? So we always talk about, what's in your control and what's not in your control is something that humans have been talking about forever. But the best that I can come up with when you're under more pressure and it means more to you is yes, the score is important. I obviously want to shoot a low score. Like that's obvious. I want to drop my handicap, but I can still walk away from a qualifier or a tournament round or even a regular round if, let's say, I shot my average or above average score. But if I look back on the round and I say, I didn't lose my temper, my attitude was pretty good. I can't think of any major strategic decisions that I would take back. I felt like I had a good day, enjoyed myself. I could walk away from that and be okay with it now. Like, yeah, I didn't get the absolute score I wanted, but I still felt pretty good about what I did. And I take a lot of pride in that. And when I take more pride in that, then I have a more pleasant experience overall, and I score better overall as well because I'll turn, a much higher score into a lower score by kind of hanging in there. And I think that's like really golf in a nutshell in terms of like attitude is that we're all playing for score on some level. Like that's very obvious. We want to shoot a low score, like of course, like no shit. But the other scorecard you can create for yourself, whether that's your attitude, your enjoyment, your decision making, your process before shots, how you're reviewing your rounds, like checking off those boxes, like that's great. That's your craft. Like that's your process. And I think that's another thing you can hang your hat on in this game that will make you better and enjoy it more. So that's the best way I can make my brain, my competitive brain, function in a way afterwards that said, yeah, I shot a 76. I needed to shoot a 73, but I couldn't have done anything differently. And if I could have done something differently and say, yeah, you made a few bad decisions, then I store that away and I'm like, okay, we work on that for the next time. Or maybe, there was something with ball striking.
Yeah, I feel good about my putting when I come off a round of golf saying, right, I committed to every putt.
Yeah.
I didn't change my mind over the ball on any of those putts. That even if I put poorly during that day, at least I come off and I'm like, oh, I felt good about that, because I'm always going to learn something when I do that about my break. Whereas when I'm not committing to putts, it's like you can't take any learning from it, really.
Yeah, if over every putt you hit, if like 30% of them you were thinking, is that the right line? If you were like second guessing the line while you're over the ball, or your thoughts were like somewhere else, like, yeah, then you're like, okay, this is something I need to work on. Like that's not good. Like I need some type of productive thought to replace that. And you make that a goal every time you play. So my goal for putting is, can I play that stupid song in my head when I'm over the ball? Like that's my goal. Sometimes that's hard to do. Like in that round I was telling you about, it was really hot and humid. I was so tired at the end of the round, and my mind was just like, I was getting tired mentally, and like the song wasn't as clear in my head. I'm like, nope, play the song, get back to the song. And I feel good about that, right? Because that's something I can do. Like I can't always make the putt, but I could play the song.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any closing?
Anyway, yeah, yeah, I guess the main point was that we I know we all care about this game. I know all of you listening are coming at it from different levels. And sometimes when you don't get what you want, it can make you feel really bad about yourself. And believe me, I sympathize with that because I know what it feels like and I've felt it too. And I thought, again, this experience I had was a reminder, more so the conversation I had with this golfer, someone who I could tell you has played at a very high level for a very long time. If you saw this guy play, you'd be like, wow, I wish I could play like that in my I think he's almost 70 now. But this guy had a encyclopedia of bad things that had happened along the way, and he had absorbed them, and they were part of his game, and they were the scars that he kind of think maybe not wore as a badge of honor, but he just understood that they were part of him in order to get what he wanted and play at the level he wanted. So, yeah, no matter what you want out of this game, like we're all going to develop these scars and these moments where we don't get what we want. And instead of letting them kind of lead you down a negative spiral and make you feel bad about yourself, you just understand that, like, yes, this is part of the game. Yes, I can get over this through time. It won't feel as bad as it does now. And more importantly, I can learn from it and adjust from it and know that I gained more experience and a new reference point. Therefore, I will have a better opportunity to deal with it next time. So scars are a good thing. I have a scar on my eyebrow, I have a scar on my forehead, I have a scar on the back of my head that were all placed there before the age of 10. And you know what they taught me? Don't do stupid stuff. I went to the emergency room a lot as a kid because I did a lot of dumb things, and I don't do them anymore. So those scars taught me something. They're on my body to remind me not to do stupid stuff. So same goes for your golf game. Learn from them. Don't let them define you is my parting message.
Take the emotion out of it, suck
As
out the
best you
logic
can.
from it.
As best you can. As best you can. It's an emotional game, but rational thought is the great antidote to all of that, obviously. So, yeah, hopefully you got something from that. I hope it can apply to, I'm sure everyone listening to this had something that happened last week, last month, or whatever that kind of rattled you a bit. And it's quite normal. And there will be something good will happen too, right? Something good can happen, and you have to believe that that's possible. And then you get excited in those moments too. So yeah, it's a wonderful game. Just a reminder for you all. So thanks for listening, Adam. Where can everyone find your stuff as always?
AdamYoungGolf.com. John, where can people find your stuff?
I'll probably blab about this more on my YouTube page. Check out John Sherman Golf on YouTube. And thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time with a new episode.